you're gonna want to learn about these forbidden historical places around the world. What might they be? What might they hold? Well, you gotta watch on to find out there, buddy boy. Temples filled with treasure, haunted asylums and unopened tombs? It sounds more like Tomb Raider or a Spielberg flick, or perhaps some sort of Scooby-Doo episode. Contrary to popular belief, though, these places are very much real and grossly forbidden. That doesn't stop people from trying to take a sneak peek to some of the world's most off-limit locations, however. Poveglia Island, Italy, also known as the most haunted place in the world. There are often historical places with a dark story, avoided by passerbys yet sought out by others, possibly tourists. It could be that rumored haunted house at the end of the lane, a graveyard just on the other side of town, or even a creepy hospital. Now imagine all three and put it on an island in Italy, and you have Poveglia Island. The island is located in Italy and a boat ride away from Venice. The island has served as both a refuge and stronghold against invaders, and a place of exile, a dumping ground and graveyard for the dying and diseased. Yeah, this place just has a lot of uses, doesn't it? The island was first called home to settlers in 421 AD by those fleeing from barbaric invaders. Our next one, the Vatican's Secret Archives. The Vatican is home to the Papa of all Papas. That's right, the leader of Papa John's, Papa Murphy's, Papa Dragon's, something other, Papa, I suppose. Either way, it's the Pope. In this small city housing a little under 1,000 people, there is a place where archaic treasures lay in wait under the protection of the city. It's known as the Vatican's Secret Archives. Now, don't let the name fool you, as it was a misnomer thanks to the Latin word secretum, or private, in the name Archivum Secretum Vaticanum. Man, I'm just bad at Latin here. The collection is located in a storeroom housing documents that span almost 12 centuries from the 8th to 20th centuries according to the Archive's official website. Altogether, the archives carry 53 miles of shelving and 35,000 volumes of catalogs. So, what makes the archive so mysterious? Not everything has been brought to light. Despite the miles of shelves, not everything is available to the public. Back in 2010, the Vatican Archives opened to journalists. In the past, entry was permitted strictly to scholars. After Dan Brown's popular novel Angels and Demons highlighted its existence, however, the Vatican began to allow visitors to peruse the centuries-old documents. But they weren't too lenient. There are parts of the archive that are still barred from the public, which includes anything written or documented after 1939. There are also rumors of valuable treasures stemming back from the 8th century or housed in the archives, and there's one speculation that the Catholic Church may be keeping extraterrestrial secrets under lock and key. Our next entry is Lascaux Caves, France. The Lascaux Caves were found completely by accident. You see, back in the good old days of the 1940s, in fact it's actually 1940 to be exact, two boys were out in the Lascaux Hills in southwestern France when they found themselves in a bit of a predicament. Their dog slipped into a hole near the hill and couldn't climb its way out. When the boys traversed into the pit where their dog fell, they found something incredible. What they found was an entire cavern filled with paintings. Cave paintings! And don't worry, the dog was rescued with little to no injury as well. The entire cavern was alive with frescoes of sepia, ochre, and charcoal-colored animals ranging from deer, horses, aurochs, ibex, and bison. For a long time, however, archaeologists had a tough time believing the paintings were from our primitive cousins. The cave paintings were way too fresh to the eyes of early archaeologists. However, as decades passed, scientists analyzed the paintings and discovered they were in fact 20,000 years old. The discovery of the cave paintings brought on a wave of tourism, with many flooding the caves to get a glimpse of the mural paintings left by their ancestors. There was a problem, however. As people came in and out of the cave, their clothes created lint buildup in the caves, and their body temperatures changed the humidity of the caves, leading the precious paintings to grow mold. In the end, the cave was closed to the public in the 60s. Our next entry, the abandoned Chateau Miranda in Belgium. Chateau Miranda, also known as Castle Miranda or Noisy Castle, stood as a bookmark in the pages of time. Although it looks like a fairy tale castle on its exterior, the inside is an entirely different story. Located in Namur, Belgium, the fabulous structure was built by English architect Edward Milner in 1866. Milner was commissioned by the wealthy, please put this name up on the video, I can't read this if I tried. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna summon some pre-old age demon if I even try to utter this word. Either way, it was to replace the castle that was destroyed in this person's home country. Chateau Miranda would prove to be a major undertaking. Unfortunately for this family, Milner passed away before the castle was finished. Thankfully, his successors took over, followed his blueprints, and completed the castle in 1907 with the installment of its bell tower. Despite having their lavish castle and living their lives in opulence with the approach of World War II, the family faced adversity. As Hitler's armies raided Europe, the Battle of the Bulge occurred a stone's throw away from the castle. It was actually nearly in the generously sized backyard. That was when German soldiers began to occupy the castle grounds. The family was forced to seek greener pastures elsewhere. As time continued, the enchanting castle saw the faces of multiple owners and later became an orphanage until its doors closed in 1991. The property is currently privately owned but remains in disrepair. Over the years, there have been whispers of repair, but ultimately nothing has changed. Our next entry is Air Force One. Of course, Air Force One would be completely off limits. Well, at least to us commoners. The jumbo jet is meant to usher one person and one person only, the President of the United States. Believe it or not, the iconic plane tasked to transporting the US leader was not always the blue and white jet known today. In fact, the name Air Force One wasn't coined until Dwight D. Eisenhower's presidency in 1953. Before that, it was dubbed as the Sacred Cow while under FDR's presidency, and it kept being called that until its current namesake. Who would have thought that an airplane would bear witness to an accordion of events that would shape our country? As the decades passed, the jet was updated, and you can thank John F. Kennedy for the redesign. When he became president in 1961, he sought to change his transportation by collaborating with Raymond Loewy, who was known at the time as one of the fathers of industrial design. Loewy was responsible for the design of Lucky Strike cigarette packaging and the Coca-Cola vending machine. He came up with various designs, and at one point the plane was to have a splash of red. But in the end, JFK opted for seafoam blue, a color that makes the plane look horizontal and sleek. It was due to their collaboration that we see the same body and face of today's current Boeing jet. Our next entry, Chernobyl Nuclear Plant, Ukraine. Chernobyl is one of the largest man-made disasters in history, one that rivals and surpasses the Hiroshima bomb by the displacement of 400 times more radiation. It was the kind of stuff made of nightmares, one that perpetually fueled the anxieties of every human being on the planet. The disaster resulted from two massive explosions that blew the roof off of one of the planet's reactors on April 26, 1986. What was meant to be a routine test turned into a cataclysmic disaster, one that resulted in 2 direct deaths and countless more due to radiation exposure. One would be thoroughly shocked to discover that the disaster didn't end there. To this very day, people are still dealing with the nuclear fallout in Chernobyl. 28 more deaths were reported in direct correlation with the Chernobyl explosion, not including the thousands of people who would later show signs of declining health from the exposure. Of course, as the decades have passed, the radiation has lessened, but it doesn't mean that it is no longer detectable. There is still evidence of the after effects of the explosion lingering around the plant, particularly in the nuclear plant's basement, where a gross moss called the Elephant's Foot rests. Elephant's Foot is a mass of toxic mayhem comprised of nuclear waste, silica, and various other materials that, if exposed for more than 5 minutes, can have fatal consequences to somebody. Our next entry is Oradea-sur-Glane, France, again. In comparison, the destruction that befell Oradea-sur-Glane in southwest France would be similar to the invasion of the Gauls against ancient Rome in 387 BC. This massacre triggered by events following World War II which left the small town in utter destruction. It all began in June 10th, 1944, when German soldiers infiltrated the town with a force that amounted to 700 soldiers. In their raiding of the land, enemy soldiers massacred men, women, and children, leaving behind only 6 known survivors. It's a grim outlook, but war in the most understated sense is just that. Grim. And a shallow grave for the innocent. It was the brutality of what occurred in the village of Oradea-sur-Glane that led locals to agree on one decision. Instead of rebuilding the small, peaceful, and provincial village, locals decided to let it remain as a ruin, as a reminder of the village slaughter. Locals never attempted to rebuild it. A vintage opal is left burned and rusted on a vacant lawn, and the scorched and crumbled buildings are reminiscent of the ruins of Pompeii. Although the village serves as a reminder of the terrible destruction, it's also a token of its survival. Out of the ruins, what remained of the fire and bloodshed are remnants of what once was a tranquil village. The ruin serves as both graveyard and epitaph, a memorial of those who perished, and is left alone out of respect. Our next entry, First Emperor Qin Shi Huang's tomb. Most great discoveries are often uncovered by accident, like the Lascaux Caves, only to astonish archaeologists and scholars alike. The unveiling of the first emperor of a united China's tomb is among one of those startling discoveries, and it was thanks to a couple of farmers that made the find of a century. In 1974, just outside the city of Xi'an, China, farmers were digging a well when they stumbled upon a clay statue of a soldier. Startled, they informed authorities, who in turn called professors to inspect their discovery. As it turned out, the farmers had located the tomb of one of China's most controversial emperors, Qin Shi Huang. I'm pretty sure I've been pronouncing all these names wrong, but you know what? I just don't care at this point. In the tomb, archaeologists found 8,000 clay soldiers standing at the ready in a series of trenches. There were also clay war horses standing four abreast, along with pottery, chariots, and weapons. It took 700,000 laborers to build his tomb along with the mausoleum. By the way, this mausoleum has never been opened. Though his resting place is yet to be excavated, archaeologists have reported high levels of mercury behind the tomb doors. After looking through historical documents, reports indicated that the inside of the tomb is a replica of Qin Shi Huang's kingdom, complete with a flowing river of mercury and figures depicted in acrobatic poses inside. There have also been indications that untold treasures may lie inside.
I saved the best for last, but first, I have a quick challenge that takes only 5 seconds to complete. If you can leave a like and subscribe within the next 5 seconds, you'll get 10 years of amazing luck. Just try it, it really works.
Our final entry, Secrets in Area 51. X-Files, Ancient Aliens, Project Blue Book, and also that stupid Facebook petition, etc. The concept is the same. What many believe to be a military base, others are convinced that Area 51 is a place rife with government conspiracy. It's a no-brainer that Area 51 is the epitome of all forbidden places, as access is only granted to those with high-level clearance. What is the government quote-unquote hiding behind hangar doors of the infamous base? Well, it may be commonplace for those expecting something extravagant. Area 51 is secretive for a reason, and it started in the throes of the Cold War. Then Area 51 was a secret military base that served as the staging ground for experimental spacecraft, and no, not extraterrestrial aircraft. Testing experimental craft only known as Black Aircraft, Area 51 was home to a top-secret Cold War-era program known as Oxcart. The program was developing an undetectable spy plane that was virtually invisible and could gather valuable information on the Soviet Union. What they ended up developing was the Archangel 12, or A-12. This aircraft traveled at speeds surpassing 2,000 miles an hour and could take clear, candid photos from an altitude of 90,000 feet. Of course, this wasn't enough for conspirators. It's prettier to believe the lie than the reality of the truth. Despite what goes on in this patch of Nevada desert, many still believe a cosmic supernatural force is at work here.